Today we are going to talk about the history of the English language. Before we go into that, I want to tell you something about language. Language is like a living entity. Language changes according to time and space. It has a structure in it that changes to adapt to certain situations. Language travels across space. By this we mean that the changes in language is because of the number of physical geographical locations in which this language is spoken. Language changes when it travels because of its contact with other languages. I want you to know that English language belongs to the Indo-European family of languages. The English we have today reflects so many centuries of development. Some of the social and political events that has in the course of the history of English language affected the English-speaking people both in their national life and in the changes that has been made in the language include the Norman Conquest. The Norman Conquest made English language the language of the lower class of the society for 2 centuries, while the French language was spoken by the nobles associated with them. English language later gained supremacy as the language of all elements of the population. However, it wasn't the English language that was spoken in the 1966. It was an English that has changed drastically both in form and in vocabulary. Other events that contributed to the development of the English language include the 100 Years' War, the rise of an important middle class, the Renaissance, the development of England as a maritime power. Now, the history of English language. The history of English language started with the arrival of the 3 Germanic tribes: the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, that arrived in the 5th century AD on the British Isles and dominated the original Celtic-speaking inhabitants. The Celtic language was quickly displaced and their speakers pushed into Wales and Cornwall, where the Scottish and Celtic language survived. One of the group migrated to the Britannic coast, where their inhabitants and their descendants still speak the Celtic language of British today. The English language spoken and written during this period, the period from 450 to 1100 AD, is therefore referred as Old English. The German tribe that arrived in Britain settled in 7 smaller kingdoms called the Heptarchy. The Saxons settled in the south of the Thames, made up of the Essex, the Wessex, and the Sexes. The Angles settled in the East Anglia, Mercia, and Northumbria, while the Jutes settled in the southeast of England, also known as Kent. The Anglo-Saxon nations were called Albion and Britannia under the Roman. They were later referred to as Anglaland or England, that is the language of the Angles, which was later shortened to England, with its emerging language as English, which is referred today to as Old English or Anglo-Saxon, named after their invaders, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. The term Anglo-Saxon, therefore, is used to refer to either the language of this period or its speakers. The word English came from English, but its emergence as a distinct language rather than just a Germanic dialect was a gradual process. English began to develop its own distinctive features in isolation from the continental Germanic language by around 600 AD.